Hello everyone and welcome back to Dance with the Devil Part 3. Anna woke the next morning and had to think back to the night before. Had that been real? Had she really made a deal with the devil? Stood in front of a crowd as they cheered. She grabbed a hairband from a nightstand and pulled her hair into a ponytail, or tried. That was the first sign things were off. Every day she did the same thing. She got up, put her hair in a ponytail, and the band wrapped around her hair 3 times. Now she barely was able to wrap it twice. She got out of bed and walked over to the mirror above her dresser. Her hair still looked like hers, but she'd grown more of it overnight. Her skin was glowing. Glowing. Like she had just gotten back from a sunny place that left a warm glow. Her eyes that had always been a dull blue seemed brighter. She still looked like herself, but a much improved version. Maybe last night had happened. She showered and changed, wondering what today would bring. When she got to the ballet company, she wasn't the only one to notice. Her fellow dancers were all looking at her and whispering behind their hands. Anna, she turned to see Scott, one of the lead soloists who had never spoken to her before. Hi. You look different. Did you do something? He asked, as his gaze kept running over her features, as if he couldn't quite put his finger on the difference. Nothing. She tried to repress a smile of attracting the attention of the best-looking dancer in the company. He nodded and said something about maybe grabbing a coffee after the practice before he left. Maybe, she said. She made away with the rest of the dancers as they went to the stage to prepare for their guest. An hour later, Anna stood on the sidelines of the stage as Markham, the guest choreographer, whom she'd been hearing about for months, praised the dancers moving before him. His ballets could skyrocket a dancer to stardom, but that wouldn't happen if she was never seen. As she stood watching her chance of being in one of the most anticipated ballets in the whole ballet corps history fade, she wondered again if last night's meeting had been a dream. The group of dancers switched places with another group of names called. It was the last group to go, and she hadn't been called to join them, so she knew it wouldn't be here. It wouldn't. She saw the looks. They all knew. Mr. Bink would allow her to stay, but it was going to be a high cost. Markham would never see a dance. She heard some scuffling, and the curtain that shielded the side of the stage where she was standing suddenly came falling down. A group of her fellow dancers seemed to have gotten up in it. The material ripped with a horrific sound, and then was joined by Mr. Bink's voice as he demanded to know what had happened. Mr. Bink glanced over at the annoyed Markham and told the group to silence and the dancers to restart. Without the cover of the curtain, Anna couldn't stop herself from looking over at the handsome Markham, praying somehow he'd notice her, and more convinced than ever last night had been nothing but a desperate delusion. His dark eyes wandered away from the dancers until he was staring straight at her. She turned away, thinking he must have sensed her staring. Who's she? He asked, loud enough that everyone heard him, and Anna looked back. He was staring at her with intensity, and that was quite unsettling. She's not one of my best, Mr. Bink said, with a dismissive wave. Very dismissive, actually. I want to see her dance. Anna stepped forward. Mr. Bink barked, "Do the solo from Swan Lake." Anna's insides tensed. She couldn't do that solo, no matter how many times she tried, without tripping at some point and Mr. Bink was more aware of that than anyone. But this was her chance. She had to nail it. Then she thought of last night. Things were supposed to change. If this was real, this would be a moment. The dancers cleared the stage, some giggling as they did, since many of them had seen her try and perform this dance before. She took her position and the piano started to play and let all her worries drop. Her lifelong insecurities and everything negative, every negative word she'd heard, and leapt across the stage as if she were born to dance this part. The music took control of her body, as if driving her on some other level. She leapt and turned with flawlessness. That would have put even Maria to shame. The music stopped as she finished with her chin tilted up and froze. There wasn't a sound to be heard, not even breathing. As she botched it, she'd felt so natural, so fluid. She looked around and saw nothing but shock, except for Markham, who was smiling. He began to clap and clap, and then everybody else seemed to join in. And that's the end of this episode of Dance with the Devil. I guess the deal was real after all, and her life has indeed changed very much. What that means for her soul, we have yet to find out. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.